Hope you guys are all okay and all good. Welcome to another video with lots of noise outside that is going to drive me insane.
We're keeping it real.
We're keeping it real. This is authentic. Welcome to London. I am being joined by the wonderful Laure Eve. So we can talk about her wonderful book, The Graces. This is part of the YA Shot blog tour, which is being run by Alexia Casale. So I've been asked to be a part of this, so thank you so much for letting me be a part of this, and thank you for teaming me up with the wonderful Laure, for anyone who watches my channel will know I'm a massive fan of, so this is a really good moment for me. So I have a bunch of questions. I have 10 questions, and a tiny little quickfire in the middle, just in case, just to switch it up a bit.
Oh my god.
I know. Just to keep you on your toes.
Damn toes.
You already know that I'm a big fan. I've already mentioned maybe a few times on my channel that this book is everything. I need to ask, it comes out in like a month. So this is going up on August 2nd, so this comes out in like a month, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Where did the idea for The Graces come from?
Where did it come from? It came from several areas. I, as a human, am very interested in the kind of darker aspects of us. So I've always been very drawn to, so shall we say, morally complex characters and things that people will do in secret in order to get what they want, balances of power, the things that people will do for power and all of that kind of thing. So that has always been a thing that I write about. Secondary to this, there is a seminal film, and this will age me, from the 90s called The Craft. If you haven't heard of The Craft, if you ask any lady around about my age, they will tell you that they know what The Craft is. It's one of those strange cult films that was, I don't think it was that big on release, but nevertheless seems to have been seen by every girl around my age. And it's basically about girls who are witches, but not in a fantastical sense, in a very grounded, just normal, one of them lives in a trailer park, one of them's having problems being bullied at school, one of them is, they all come from slightly damaged, fractured backgrounds, and their way of taking control of their life is through witchcraft. Cue the background.
The horrible background noise.
And so it's just really compelling because they are not exactly ordinary girls, but they are not extraordinary talented in any way. They weren't born a witch, they weren't anything like that. They just learn how to do it in a way. And really it's about the relationships between the girls and how dark it can get when you're a teenage girl, essentially. Which I find lovely. So it's that, it's my own fascination with darkness and dark characters, and it's also The Craft. Thank you, The Craft.
Thank you, The Craft, indeed. So we need to talk about River.
Okay.
We've got to talk about River. So the main character in this book is called River. She is so interesting.
That's not her real name, though.
It's not her real name. She's so interesting, and the journey that she goes on is completely mind-bogglingly mental. In the best possible way.
Yes.
Where on earth did she come from? Did she just appear like this, or?
Me. So I always, from the beginning, knew that she would be what is known in the biz as an unreliable narrator. I knew that I wanted her to be a cipher for anyone who was reading her, basically, and she is the girl on the outside. Which is me, and it's also all of us, because if there's one thing that we all have in common, that we believe as teenagers we are all alone about, is that we feel outside. It is just the most common human experience, and yet when you're in it, you feel completely isolated, like you're the only one going through this and no one can possibly understand you. And that's kind of her. She is someone who I never really describe her, because I want her to be anybody. And she is that desire, very strong desire that I suppose not every teenager has, but many teenagers have, of empowerment. You need to feel in control, because suddenly everything does not feel in control, and you'll find any way you can to get to that control. So it's all of that, and I definitely knew that she was going to be not lying to you as a reader, but keeping things from you deliberately, that she would be controlling the narrative that you read. So I always find that really fascinating, those kinds of characters. So this is nothing to do, it's not connected to River, but Fight Club is a good example.
Right, yeah.
Where, you know, the narration is being controlled by the main character. You're not seeing the big picture not until the end. And I really love that kind of twist. I think it's really clever, and difficult to do. So who knows if I pulled it off? But
I think you did. I can say wholeheartedly that you did.
Thank you.
I finished reading it on that horrible, horrible day when every train in the world was cancelled.
Yeah.
And so I was stood on the overground from Richmond, and so I got to read pretty much, I think, well over half the book I read in one day. So there was a lot of people seeing my facial expressions, just being very much like. So River, she is, as everyone is in this town, she is obsessed with the Graces. So we have to talk about the Grace family and what sparked them, and then we're going to talk about one in particular, but we're going to talk about what sparked the Grace family.
The Grace family are those people, and every town has one really, either one person or a set of people. They are the coolest of the school. They are the ones that coolness and glamour just seems to come so effortlessly to them. They just don't even seem to try, and everybody worships them. I knew people like this when I was a teenager, and trust me, I was not one of these cool teenagers. I was a little bit on the outside, shall we say. But yes, that's what they represent from the beginning. And hopefully you start off with a very kind of shallow viewpoint of them, because everything you see in the book, you see through the eyes of River. And what she sees is that. She sees glamour, and she sees beauty, and she sees things that she wants. And when you're on the outside of that, you don't necessarily look any deeper with those people. You put them up on a pedestal and they represent something to you. You don't necessarily want them to be that real, because you want them to be perfect.
Yeah.
They are, you know, the celebrities of their whatever. So that's what they are. But hopefully as you go through the book, you do get the sense of them as real people with their own faults and their own problems. They're not that nice, but they're not awful, or sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. I mean, this is the thing with me. I like contradictions in characters because that's the way people are. I find it really weird if a character throughout the whole book is the same, just the same, reacting the same way to everything always. How can that be? You can be, you know, a horrible person, and you can be an angel, and you can be both of those things almost at the same, you know, instant. You can be both of those things to one person. It's not as easy as that. It's not always good and not always bad. So yes, that's what it is.
So my personal favourite Grace, and I think there are a lot of people. They will be a lot of people's favourite Grace.
I think I can guess it.
Is Fendron?
Yeah.
I love Fendron, and I want to touch my face with his face. And where? Because he's so. Where did he come from? Because he is so. I mean, he just pops off the page.
Okay.
You want to know Fendron.
Yes.
For a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Apart from the gorgeousness, but the kind of cool swaggeriness of him.
Yes.
He's very alluring.
Yes, he is very alluring.
Where?
I don't know. I knew those guys at school, and I was the kind of desperately trying to appear apathetic kind of teenager who was all like, yeah, whatever, I'm not really into that guy, the guy that everyone else fancies. No, he's not my type kind of thing. While inside going, oh, so my type. That's Fendron. I always found those, you know, like all writers are interested in people and psychologies and stuff. I always found those kind of guys interesting because again, it's that thing of when you get up close to them, they become a real person, and therefore, how far do you want to take it? What exactly is it that you want from them? It's probably something they can't give you. If you want to just be fascinated by them like a little jewel in the corner, then that's fine, but they are real people and they can't be your idol. So it's that kind of weird thing where the closer you get to them, the more you get to know them, and the less they are the thing that attracts you. But I think it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Who wants to be surrounded by idols all the time and never know anybody? So I suppose that's him. He has, shall we say, hidden depths,
Yes.
I hope.
So many hidden depths. So many that make you kind of go, at the book when you're reading it. So this is your third book.
Yeah.
So Fearsome Dreamer and The Illusionists came first.
Yes.
They involved a lot more world building
Yeah.
and fantastical elements and a lot of creating this thing for us to see.
Yeah.
Was writing The Graces, was that a decision to move slightly more contemporary, or did it just happen?
That's a good question, because actually I think I found writing The Graces a lot more difficult. And you could put that down to a lot of things. I mean, I feel The Graces for me is like second album syndrome. Even though I'd written 2 books before, they were 2 parts of one story. So that whole world and that story was kind of the first one. And this was the second one. So maybe it was a bit of that. But I personally seem to find it more difficult to write fantastical elements in a contemporary setting rather than a wholly fantasy setting with contemporary elements. And I'm not sure why. Also, I had restricted myself because this is the first time I've written in first person. And when you're writing from first person, I don't personally get on board with those first person narratives where the narrator nevertheless seems to be a bit omnipresent and still know stuff that they shouldn't know. So it's a difficult thing to do because it's very, very restrictive. You have to think like the character. You can only know what the character knows. You can only show what the character is seeing themselves, and everything has to be through their prism. So you might find that you're saying things in a scene or seeing people in that scene in a way that you don't particularly like, but that's the way the character sees it, so you have to go with it. So it's quite restrictive. So it's an interesting exercise in that way because it forces you to write quite differently. But it wasn't a choice I made deliberately. It was that River came first, and her unreliable narration just fits so much better in first person in that restrictive kind of arena. And the contemporary thing, it wasn't a choice. It was just what fit with her character, really. So you could argue that actually she's the thing that came first out of everything.
Would you ever go back to Fearsome Dreamer, the world of Fearsome Dreamer?
I do get asked occasionally by people online, and I have said that I would, because I think there's a lot more to say in that world. What I will say is that I shouldn't say too much about this, but all I'm going to say is that everything I write, however loosely, is interconnected. In the sort of way that, and I'm shamelessly
Sorry, that
ripping
makes me
this.
so excited. I'm sorry.
In the sort of the same way I was shamelessly ripping this from Stephen King. If you read a lot of Stephen King, you realise that his books are all interconnected in some way. Or almost all of them are, in fact. They're either set in a similar, in the same town, or set in Maine. Some minor characters from other books have become major characters in later books, and there are just small references to things that have happened in the past and all this kind of stuff. And this all really comes to fruition in his fantasy series, The Dark Tower, which is incredible, flawed but incredible. And if you know The Dark Tower, I've probably given too much away about my idea, but basically the world of Fearsome Dreamer is never that far away, let's say. But it's very subtle,
Yeah.
you know. As some books it might be more obvious, I think, down the line. With this one it's very subtle, but it's there.
This makes me want to go back and read them both and then read this again. And, oh god.
It's especially there in this, well, it's a little bit more there in the sequel to this as well. There is another reference. And then the new thing that I'm toying with at the moment is much more obvious. Anyway, I'll stop.
On the sequel, it's like you've read the questions, which you haven't. This is great. When I last spoke to you, you told me it was killing you.
Yeah, it was killing me.
How is it now? And what, if anything, can you tell us about it?
It's fine because I have a first draft, and that to me is always the worst part of the whole process. I know a lot of writers will say differently that the first draft is wonderful because it's the creating period and all of that. For me, it isn't. It's the editing process that I like the best, because I get to a certain point by myself, and I'm probably maybe not the most patient person, and therefore I get frustrated because I can't see how to make it better anymore. I'm too close to it. I'm too stuck in it. So I need someone else, like one of my wonderful editors, to come along and say, these are the things that are not working. And the thing is, when they do that, what's reassuring is that most of the time it's things that you kind of knew weren't, but you need someone else to tell you it before you rip the book apart again, you know, and cause yourself 2 or 3 more months of work, which on a deadline you can't afford to do. So it was that, really. It was under deadline, which I like because it makes me work. Otherwise I'm massively lazy and I'll just sit on the sofa and mainline True Detective or something. But it was that, and I was like, oh god. It just needed a lot of thinking time that I didn't have time for. So every moment that wasn't spent tippy-tapping away on the computer felt to me like a moment lost, which is terrible, really, because you have to give yourself thinking time in a first draft. You can't just bash it out, at least I can't. I'm not that kind of writer. So yeah, it was difficult, like, in that way. It's fine now in first drafts, that's nice. And I'm patiently waiting to hear how to improve it, and that to me is the good bit. What can I tell you about it? It is from Summer Grace's point of view.
No! I didn't know this!
Yeah.
This changes everything.
Yeah.
God, I was expecting more River. Oh
No,
my god.
no.
I need a minute.
The thing is, I wrote this as a standalone initially, and then when it went out on submission, it was going out to lots of foreign publishers and stuff, and they all said that they wanted a sequel eventually. I mean, I gave them something else. They said, you know, can you write a synopsis for a sequel? And a synopsis is something completely different. And I gave them something else, but they all were like, no, we want a sequel to The Graces. So I never actually intended to write a sequel to it. So I had to come up with something on the fly, which sounds really unprofessional, but yeah, it's just the way it is. You wouldn't believe. This is just how things happen. I didn't, you know, ideas sometimes are just like that. You just run with it. But yes, so I never intended to write it as a sequel. But then when I thought about it, what I really wanted to do was not a companion novel per se, but if I was going to do another one, I wouldn't want to do the same perspective again. I'd want to move it on from that, because that to me felt like quite a complete, self-contained story. I know there's a cliffhanger at the end, but it felt like that arc was done, and you had most of what you needed from that character. There's a lot more you don't know about River, but you get this sort of completeness of that particular story of hers. And I always felt that The Graces could stand to be explored more because they're so interesting. And so I really wanted to write it from their perspective. So it's Summer's viewpoint. It's third person as well. It's not first. So it's a bit more expansive than the first book. But it's set in their house. You know, it's their narration. It's about them and as a family.
I'm having a slight fangasm about this. I can't deal with this. This is not what I was expecting.
Yeah. So it's all from their perspective. So anything that you were kind of, if you read the first book and you're like, hot damn, I wish I knew more about The Graces. Well, the second book hopefully gives you that.
I mean, I finished the first book and I was like, what is going to happen? What will happen?
Yeah, exactly.
And now it's just going in a completely, oh my god, okay.
It does go quite crazy in the second book as well.
Okay, oh my god, crazier than the first one?
Yeah.
Oh my god, the torture. Oh, what question am I on? So you've actually kind of touched on this a little bit, but I asked this question to Patrick Ness. I asked it to Juno when I interviewed her. If two characters from different books could meet, so we've already kind of touched on the fact that somehow they're all in the same place. If two of them could meet, who would you have meet? And how would that even go?
That's a good question, man.
So like fanficking your own characters.
Fanficking my own characters. I want to say, just because I'm slightly smutty, I want to say what I really love is for like a younger version of Fendron a younger version of Frith from Fierce and Dreamer to meet a version of Wolf. Because I think that they would really fancy each other. If I'm going to answer this question, I've got to answer this question seriously, otherwise I look really weird. So,
I feel like that's a perfectly valid answer.
This is boring. This is a boring answer, but really the two main characters. So Rue from Fierce and Dreamer and River from The Graces, because I think that they would hate each other, and they're both. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil either one, but they both have something interesting to them that you can't talk about.
You can't talk about either of them, but oh my god.
Something interesting to them. So they're quite different. In fact, they're almost opposites in basic terms. So Rue is very open and truthful, and she demands the truth from people, and she's very curious, and she wants to know what's going on, and she doesn't hide anything, and she's like that. And River is the opposite. She hides everything. She's very fearful, and she's very secretive and close. So that would be a very interesting thing to see those two interact.
I would like to see that. If someone wants to go and write that, that would be great. Yes, either, please. Really.
Yeah.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Books or movies?
No.
Right.
I can't. What are you asking me? I love them both so much. Christ. That's really hard. Because if I don't say books, I may be ostracized forever by everyone I know. Okay, I'm just going to bite the bullet and say movies.
Comedy or heart-wrenching drama?
Drama. I'm a drama queen.
Winter or summer?
Okay, I think that people would expect me to say winter because I'm slightly goth. But actually I'm a summer creature. Yeah, I love heat and sunlight. It's nothing.
Harry or Ron?
Harry. Ron's annoying.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, he's funny and everything,
yeah.
But just stop whining.
Yes.
And Harry has a lot more crap to deal with.
Yes, and he can moan because, oh my god.
Legitimately moan. Still love you, Ron.
River or Vela Rue?
Oh, that's mean. Rue.
Fenrin or White?
Oh no! No! I refuse. I'm gonna walk off this set. How dare you? White. He's a little bit more interesting for me personally.
So we've had The Graces. Mm-hmm. We know you're working on a sequel, which I'm still not. My mind is still in the middle of being blown about that. Do you have any idea what comes next?
Not really. So I'm waiting on edits for the sequel to The Graces. In the meantime, I'm messing about with a couple of ideas, but it really depends what people go for. So if everybody feels like they wanted another book in the Graces sequence, that's a possibility. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's a possibility. There are also two other ideas that I'm messing about with. One that I've been talking about for a really long time, actually. And I just need to get on and write it because I pretty much have the whole plot down and the characters and everything. which is basically a bit of a not an update, but it's inspired by Les Liaisons Dangereuses, Dangerous Liaisons, Cool Intentions, that whole.
Yeah.
So it sounds a little bit similar to Cool Intentions, and it's set at an elite boarding school, and it has some plot elements are loosely very similar, but it's quite different. That's really it feels really like it can be really fun. And then there's another one that is very recent, that's a big fantasy thing that I don't think I can really say much about because I don't know yet really what it is. All I know is that it's set in a castle, which is, yeah. It's set in a big castle, the kind of castle that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about, and I can't say anything. Oh.
Anyway.
I want that. Okay. I want all of those. I'd read your shopping list. And to close, so I ask this every time I interview someone, and I feel so privileged that I get to say that every time I interview someone. What is your best advice for any budding writers who might watch this? What is your best piece of writing advice?
Yeah, this is tough. I'm going to ask this a lot. I think my best advice is probably similar to a lot of other writers say, but I don't really feel like writing can be taught. I think it's one of those disciplines that you, like making movies or anything, I feel like you can teach yourself through pure osmosis. So if you live and breathe books, and you live and breathe writing, and you read as much as you can and as widely as you can in every possible different genre, and that's, you know, a really big part of your life, you already know how to write. You know how to plot a story because you know the ones that you love, you know the way they work. You just have to look at them. And you know how to write great characters because you recognise great characters, you know. So I think it's all there. Don't be afraid of it just because you feel like you need to have studied it somehow. You don't. To be a writer, I don't really believe personally that you need to have studied it. You just need to have immersed yourself in it as much as you possibly can, and you'll get it. You will get it. And so then what follows on from that is that you need to write. You need to write as much as you can. You can write anything you like. I mean, I started out just writing stories by myself, but when the internet came along, for example, I wrote online. So back in the day when there were such things as chat boards, message boards and chat forums, I actually stumbled upon a couple of, they were like RPGs online essentially, but they were free form, so people would write whatever they wanted to happen, there were no rules. And I did a couple, not ashamed to say it, was doing some X-Files fan fiction for a while with just other people online who, what we would do is kind of like a game of consequences where someone would write the beginning of the chapter and a whole bit of the story, and then someone else would write their character, the whole next bit of the story. And I did that for a long time online, and it was so much fun, and you got to understand, you know, how it worked and all that kind of stuff, and it was just practice. It's just good practice. So any kind of way that you can find to practice is really the only useful advice I can give you, really. There you go.
And that's it. We did a video. Woo! Thank you so much for watching. If you did, don't forget to comment below if you like this video, and maybe even respond to anything that Laure has said in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe and put a thumb on this if you like this, and share it everywhere. And go to YA Shot. It's going to be so freaking cool.
It's going to be amazing.
I'll put links to everything you need to find out more about YA Shot in the description box below. Thank you, Laure.
You're
wonderful. Thank you, Faber, for letting us use your boardroom. We're in a boardroom.
It's
They put me in a boardroom. Why? And that's the end. I love your faces, and I'll speak to you soon. Say bye.
Bye.
Bye.